This is a 2019 Audi Q8, the brand's new flagship SUV model. And just look at it. It's really good looking. However, when it comes to buying cars, there has to be more than just surface level beauty. So let's jump into it and see what makes this thing tick. So obviously with any vehicle, there's more to it than exterior styling. And obviously you know where I stand on that with the Q8. Fortunately, I have the good news of saying the interior of the Q8 is even better than the exterior. Come on. So first things first, I'm gonna close the door of the Q8 and you'll see why in a second. Did you hear that noise? Well, you might have heard it, but now it's basically gone. You see, the Q8 features double paned glass, which means this glass in the doors is extra thick and it insulates a lot of noise. So you see that giant truck driving past? Well, it's nice and quiet in here. Now the double pane glass is nice because it keeps the interior cabin very quiet, but there's so much more to the Q8 than that. Now, the Q8 features a lot of things you see in a lot of other contemporary Audis. Like this infotainment system. This is the latest version of MMI with 2 stacked screens. It's very pretty. And while it appears to be a bit of a buttons fest at first glance, once you get used to how everything is laid out, it's so easy and so nice to operate. These screens are so slick and have such nice capacitive feedback through your fingers. It also helps the displays are crystal clear. And again, there's a lot going on here, but after about 15 minutes of driving in the car, you got it covered, no problem. Now, every car has screens. In this case, it has 3. 1, 2, and then 3. This is Audi's virtual cockpit system. It's a full virtual display that's very much configurable and show you different things. So right now, the nav's kind of in the middle and you have your gauges right here. If you want your nav screen to be even bigger, you can have it take over the majority of the screen, so on and so forth. Now, if you look around, besides the screens, the materials in this vehicle are all top-notch. I mean, the leather-bound dash looks nice. The suede headliner feels excellent. There is this beautiful matte wood trim across the car and it just looks great. This is a very premium cabin from the way it looks and the way it feels. This one's equipped with leather seats, which are also very nice, thickly bolstered on the sides and very comfortable for me, my 6'1" frame. So I'm in the back seat of the Q8 right now, and I've left the driver's seat in my seating position. Again, I'm 6'1", and look how much knee room I have back here. So tons of knee room, tons of headroom. Again, totally good at 6'1". I have about 2 or 3 inches before I touch the headliner. So great space back here. You'll notice that despite being a Q8, you think it'd be the biggest one in the Audi SUV lineup, but it only has 5 seats. Now, that's a bit of a packaging trade-off, and I'll show you why in a second. But first, let me show you this. These rear occupant controls are amazing. Not only do you have a way to charge your outlets, you have an outlet right here, a plug, 2 USBs that are both quick charging and sync up to the infotainment screen. You have your own independent rear vents and your independent climate control to the back, which is very, very nice. So I mentioned that Q8 only seats 5, and obviously that's a matter of trade-offs, right? You can only get so much seats and have so much trunk space. Also, if you notice the Q8, part of the reason why it looks so good looking is this really aggressive taper in the quarter panel here. It almost gives it more like a big hatchback sort of shape. So while you only get 5 seats, you do have a very deep, very large trunk. Now, for perspective, that's about 4 feet deep. There's tons of room in here for anything you may possibly need to store and stow. And obviously, the rear seats do fold down flat. So as I change the vehicle drive settings, I can actually feel the air suspension going up and down accordingly, depending on the mode I select. So right now it's lowering slightly. And then if I put it in dynamic, you can actually feel the vehicle lower down notably, much like in the off-road mode. It rises up, which you can feel happening right now. Though, if you're very particular about the way you want your powertrain to work and your steering to feel, Audi has an individual mode. Individual. You can click and calibrate to your preference. So, drive being your transmission, suspension being the adjustable air suspension, and steering being the steering feel. And based on how this thing drives, here's how I set the car up in individual. I put the drivetrain into sport because the sharper transmission feeling is just so nice. As far as the suspension tuning, I want to leave that in balanced. I think the factory suspension tuning in this vehicle is very, very good, but for an SUV, it doesn't need to be super firm. Now, for steering, I actually want to leave this in balanced as well. I think the sport steering makes the steering feel too stiff, while the comfortable mode makes it too kind of floaty and disconnected. Leaving it in balance is a nice compromise. Okay, so I can talk you through the Q8 all day, but it's important to get on the road and actually drive the vehicle so you understand what it's like from behind the wheel. Now, the Q8, obviously being a high-end luxury vehicle, after all, this thing does weigh in at $88,000 after options, has a lot of tech and goodies. Like, for example, when I took off, the pre-tensioner for the seatbelt automatically pre-tensioned to keep me nice and comfortable and planted in the seat. But obviously, it's a lot more than that. Under the hood, for example, is a 3-liter turbocharged V6 engine. It's almost ubiquitous in the Audi brand. They use it in a lot of their large sedans and SUV models. It's smooth, refined, and for the most part, very quiet until you lean onto it. And it has a pretty nice growl. That V6 engine builds up steam in a pretty nice, easy-to-drive way. That V6 engine is paired exclusively to an 8-speed automatic Tiptronic transmission, which is likewise very good. Very smooth, very refined, kind of out of mind, out of sight in the normal day-to-day drive. But again, when you lean on the car hard, it gives you nice, firm, crisp shifts and kind of keeps that engine in the power band. And naturally, being an Audi, it has the brand's Quattro all-wheel drive system as standard equipment. Now, with the Q8, like any Audi, we have to talk about drive modes, because man, does this vehicle have them. The drive mode selector is down here in the central infotainment screen, and you can configure between off-road, all-road, comfort, auto, dynamic, and individual, which basically alters the way the engine and transmission respond, the weight and feel of the steering, as well as the adaptive air suspension on this vehicle. And unlike a lot of vehicles, changing the drive modes in the Q8 actually does notably change the driving experience of the vehicle. Now, I have to say, the overarching impression is what you get through the steering wheel, especially if you put it into sport, or dynamic, I should say. Dynamic is their new verbiage. If you put it in dynamic, the steering really firms up, and you may think that's good because it's sporty, but it's really not. Because remember, you're in a large family SUV, and I'd rather have a nice fluid steering feel rather than a naturally stiff and firm steering feel. On the flip side, I think comfort is a little too far in the other direction. If you put the car into comfort mode, it does make the steering very fluid and very easy to maneuver, but it also makes it a little too disconnected. I mentioned the double pane glass on this vehicle and how it really insulates the cabin from noise, and again, that's also true while you're driving. Audi clearly went to great lengths to keep the cabin very quiet while you're actually driving the vehicle. This road I'm going over now is pretty bumpy and graded, but other than maybe the occasional bit of tire chatter over the broken pavement, you really don't notice, feel, or hear much of any of that, which is great. Now, the real question with the Q8 is, should you buy this, or should you buy something like a BMW X6? Well, to be fair, I think the BMW's powertrain is a slightly better option with the brand's inline turbocharged 6-cylinder engine and also an 8-speed automatic transmission. I think it's just a little bit of a sweeter engine to play with, though as far as styling, very subjective. I'll give the edge to the Q8 there, and as far as interiors are concerned, it's a landslide victory for the Audi. Though with any German vehicle, whether it's a Mercedes-Benz, a BMW, or in this case an Audi, we have to talk about options and pricing, because the Germans love to throw in price creep when you add a lot of options onto this vehicle. And this particular Q8 is no exception. The base price of the Q8 is $67,400. Now, this particular Q8 costs $88,460. So that's over $20,000 worth of options. So what are you getting for your 20 grand? Well, you're paying an extra grand for metallic paint. It's a white metallic. I'm not sure if I'd go for that. It kind of just looks like white paint to me. Not worth a grand. It gets things fun if you're going to pay extra for paint. Paint it orange, paint it red, paint it green, or something more fun. You can do that with Audi's individual program. This Q8 rolls on 22-inch wheels. 20s are standard, and you'll pay an extra $1,000 for the privilege. I'd say that's worth it. Visually, it's a cool looking car. The big wheels kind of just completes the package there. Now, the next option is Audi's adaptive air suspension system. It's a $2,750 option. Definitely mandatory. Again, I love the way this vehicle rides, the level of adjustability it has for different driving situations. It's absolutely worth the cash. The rest of the options package is a little bit more complex. I've actually pulled over to walk you through it just so I don't crash the car trying to talk you through everything. Okay, next up we have the luxury package, which will set you back $6 grand. Here's what you get. Valcana leather with individual contour front seats with a memory package, which the front seats are also ventilated, massage, and heat features. The extended leather package, which means you see the leather on the dash and all around the door trims, things like that, as well as the Alcantara headliner and the dual pane glass. Now, I mentioned this in the video. The dual pane glass in particular is a high-end must-have feature if you're buying a new luxury vehicle. I absolutely encourage you to tick that box as well. $6 grand, well spent, just for a much quieter, much more luxurious cabin. Now, the last thing, it's a big ask. The Prestige package is over $9 grand. So we need to break that down, because that's a big chunk of change. That's over 10% of the cost of the vehicle. Okay. Bang & Olufsen sound system. I think it's okay. It's not a make or break for me. Then you have the interior lighting package, which looks very cool at night, but again, not necessarily a make or break for me. Then you have 4-zone climate control. I do like that. I mentioned it before, having the split climate control in the back for rear seat passengers as well as a split climate control up here. It's just really nice. It feels very premium. That's probably worth it. Then you have the 360-degree camera system for parking. Basically, it gives you a bird's eye view looking down at the car. If you want to park it, you're going to need trouble parking the car. If you have a small garage or tight parking space, yeah, go for it. Then the rest, the aluminum trim, it's okay. Even more leather behind the camera, that's make or break. That's okay. That's okay for me. The HD matrix design LED headlights, again, very cool. Looks really nice. Efficacy, is it really that much better than a conventional HID light with a nice projector? Not so much. The power closing doors, that means it's a soft closed door, so you close the door and it kind of very softly goes and closes the rest of the way. That's a nice touch. That way no one slams your doors. I do like that. And then sunshades for all the rear and rear side windows. I do like that. If you have kids, having the sunshades is a super cool feature. Then the rest is where Audi is a bit tight with things. Features like adaptive cruise control with traffic jam assist, active lane assist, turning assist, intersection assistant. That's kind of your passive and somewhat active safety tech. A lot of new cars have that as standard, but the Germans are kind of stalwart and not offering that as standard equipment. Again, I don't personally care for it, but I feel like the rest of the items in the Prestige package that do kind of add up makes it worthwhile in the end. So this car is basically spec'd how I'd recommend you to spec the car. So if you do have 88 grand, sure, why not? I mean, the Q8 looks really cool. The cabin's excellent. It's comfortable. It's quiet. It's refined. There does seem to be very little in the way of downsides with this thing, unless you need more than 5 seats, which I guess you'll have to buy a Q7 then, right? Okay, that's about all I've got for the 2019 Audi Q8. As you can see, I'm definitely a fan of this vehicle and the luxurious driving experience it imparts upon you. I absolutely encourage you to check one out, unless you need more than 5 seats. In which case, get a smaller family and then still buy this anyway? I don't know. Kidding. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Please stay tuned for more videos where I go drive more fun cars. Alright, bye.